stand by. Well, it's Thursday, the 21st day of June 2018. Many thanks indeed for keeping it Citizen TV. We're now getting into the paper review segment of the Power Breakfast show. And let me introduce my guest in studio first things first. I'll start from my far right there. We are joined in studio by the Senator of Kiambu County, Kimani Wamatangi. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right next to me is the Senator of Makueni County, Mutula Kilonzo Junior. Karibu sana.
Good morning.
And right next to me is the Senator of Homa Bay, Moses Kajwang. Welcome as well.
Good morning.
Senate fully represented this morning, and hopefully they'll help us make heads or tails, or at least some sense out of this sugar discussion. And it is the headline on the front page of both papers. A bit earlier on, I showed you the front page of the Daily Nation, face behind the sugar. And there's a picture of Jaswant Rai, the chairman of the powerful empire that owns a string of sugar factories in Western. And members of parliament say he imported about 185 million kilos of it. His firm says yes, I believe yes, meaning it is true, but it is good, safe sugar. So what exactly is going on? If you turn to the front page of the Standard, and I believe we can put that up on the screen, we also see a similar story. They know secrets of the sugar barons, and we have pictures there of different leaders, and I took you through some of them, CSs, some of whom have issued contradictory statements, leaders of our different security organs. And if you scroll down a bit further on that same page, you can see Majority Leader Eden Duale, the Inspector General of Police, KRA have been roped into this. And everybody seems to have some sort of take on what exactly is happening, but no story is aligned with the other, and that is what is confusing Kenyans even more. And I'm hoping in studio here today we'll be able to get some sense out of this. I hope we won't get into deeper confusion. Senator Wamatangi, let me start with you. Help us understand your take on
well, I think you summarized it very well, Wahiga. As I say, good morning to our viewers, because I mean it's causing more confusion than shedding light on really what is this. But every time when you see a scandal like this emerging with all those different faces, then it tells you that there's a lot beneath it that meets the eye. That there's a lot of cover-up that some people are either trying to do, that either what you are being shown is not really what there is, and probably the bigger deal is elsewhere. It could be a diversionary tactic, in all these issues. You've posed it very well. I mean, what's the issue? Is it the contraband sugar, or is it toxic sugar? I mean, is it deadly sugar with chemicals, or is it illegal sugar in the market? Those are questions that one would want to ask. And speaking from with all humility, the statements that have come from the different people who've spoken about it are not congruent. They don't seem to read from the same page, even at policy level, at investigatory level, even at government level. And that's why I would want to say, one, I believe that the person that we must think about when we're talking about this is the common mwananchi. And if you look at the story in the nation, this is as simple as this. If we are being told by those that are concerned with this that there is deadly sugar in the shelves, the first thing that they must pronounce and say with a straight face is get the sugar off all the shelves in every supermarket, in every shop, because you cannot start talking about sugar with mercury in some in Nyanza, some in the Rift Valley, some in Central, some in Mombasa, and we are still treating it casually. I mean, how would we be saying that? As we know, the chemicals that have been cited as in that sugar are deadly chemicals. I mean, they would kill within months, and so, if really that evidence is there firmly with a government official who claims that this is the position, then the next thing should be to declare that all the sugar that's in the shelves should be withdrawn. Two, there is no way that this can get to that level when people are not known. Up to now, if you look at if you look at what's happening, there's not a single person who's either been nailed, arrested, apprehended. Details brought up that say that this is the person that we are going to prosecute with this. I mean, it seems to be, a lot of shenanigans, and that's why I would want to say, until the true story comes out, because I believe even now we still don't have the true story about what this issue is about. Statements until the true story comes out. If you listen to what this importer is saying, he's not denying. He's saying we have brought in sugar. It's our business. We've been bringing it.
185 million kilos of it.
You know, and that sounds small to him. I mean, it doesn't look. He says yes. You know, it's a small business. You know, so that tells you that they're big players in it.
Let me bring in Senator Mutula to get his views. Hopefully, you can give us some sort of insight into what you think is the real story behind all this.
Let me say this is a very unfortunate incident, and it's unfortunate to this extent. One, we trust government. We trust government to offer us food, to give us security, and make sure that we are safe. So when we have such a scandal, forget about the tonnage of how this one gentleman, who is called the sugar lord, he could be the sugar daddy, it could be the sugar whatever, can bring in so much sugar. The argument as to how much one person brought in so much sugar is a question that we are going to ask maybe at a later date. When you see the cabinet secretary in the name of C.S. Adan questioning a statement made by his colleague in cabinet, questioning a statement made by the Director of Criminal Investigation, then you begin to wonder whether the cabinet itself of the president and the deputy president has become hostage of the sugar daddies. And I'm going to call them the sugar daddies. What is it? Is it business? Yesterday I had a statement from one of members of parliament that it's business rivalry. Is it business rivalry? Is it mercury? But of concern, just like Senator Wamatangi, is that Mama Mudeu somewhere deep in Kadhonzweni, who is buying sugar innocently. People are going for funerals. People go visiting relatives, and you go carrying sugar. People are going for dowry ceremonies, and you are carrying sugar. People are going for whatever ceremonies, and people are going with sugar. There's something symbolic about sugar, and we are treating it very casually. Now, the tragedy is that we, Parliament, the watchdogs of the people of Kenya, 416 of us, we stand accused because from the floor of the National Assembly, people are pointing fingers at the cabinet. From the floor of the Senate, people are pointing fingers at people who have ambitions, etc., who are said to be involved in this. But the common mwananchi are suffering. That's why I made the statement yesterday that the sugar menace, the mercury-laden sugar in the country and in the shelves has reached the level of the Golden Bag saga, the Patni or soap opera, where everybody stands accused, do a trial in public. Let's start interrogating these issues. Why would we allow one gentleman to import so much sugar when farmers in Mumias and Kakamega and all other factories are either have shut down or are jobless, or we are allowing them to buy even those factories? To where is KEBS? Who allows this sugar or any other item? Because now we're going to ask the questions about items. Who allows these items? Who placed the stamp of authority that this is fit for human consumption? Do you know that that is a problem? Because we are now dealing with the wrong issues. There's people in the value chain who allowed these products into the country, and they put a stamp of authority. As he's saying, by the time we arrest the sugar daddies, we should arrest the people who are responsible in the value chain, or from Mombasa all the way to Times Tower. Those people should be held in jail, like Ngiritas and others. We should be having them in jail as we have in this
when you see two gentlemen of the caliber of cabinet secretaries making contradictory statements,
yes,
should there be some form of punishment when we finally discover who of the two of them was correct?
Not even that.
How do you then make sure that cabinet secretaries are held accountable for statements that they make?
Not even that. The president should not have allowed his cabinet secretaries to do that sort of thing in public. It's a charade. We assume by law that when Cabinet Secretary Matiang'i makes a statement, he makes a statement as a Cabinet Secretary, and therefore there's collective responsibility. If there was any disagreement, it should go back to Cabinet, and therefore we get a statement that makes sense. But when one Cabinet Secretary contradicts another Cabinet Secretary, and both of them are holding very serious dockets, Matiang'i holds the docket of internal security. He's the one who we have given the mandate to check our borders. There's another one called C.S. Adan, who is in charge of industrialization. On what basis does he contradict the person who is given that responsibility of ensuring that this sort of issues come out to play? Because DCI falls under him. So when he challenges such a docket, what basis? Did he get a call from the president or the deputy president? Or did he get a call from the sugar barons himself? Whose brief is he holding?
Let me see if Senator Kajwang can answer that question for us. Come in.
Well, I'll not be able to answer the question posed by Senator Mutula. And I will also not want to take the route of spoiling the good name of sugar daddies. We are dealing with some corrupt sugar barons and dealers. But Wahiga, please allow me just to digress a little bit and allow me to just spend 1 minute to offer my condolences to the family, friends, and to the colleagues of the late Senator Ben Oluoch-Okello. Ben Oluoch-Okello worked with you here at Royal Media Services, and he was the first person to invite me to these premises, and we used to discuss quite frequently topical issues within Ramogi FM. We as senators, we have come out in solidarity in a very non-partisan manner to ensure that we accord him a befitting send-off, but also to deal with some of the issues around cancer that have remained unresolved. We've got diagnosis equipment across the country, but we've got only 3 centers for treatment of cancer in this nation. And Mutula, who sits in the finance committee, can confirm this, that every time we do the division of revenue, we have always argued that we need to set up 3 additional cancer treatment centers in this republic. And it is our friends in the National Assembly and in the Treasury who have shot that down. The issue of cancer is not just for MPs and senators, but it afflicts every Kenyan. Let me come back to the sugar.
I was actually going to ask you, then take a pause. Let me allow your fellow senators to each send a 1 minute message, then I come back and we can switch gears. Senator Wamatangi, I can allow both you and Senator Mutula just 1 minute each.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, and I want to thank Senator Kajwang for being prompt and remembering. Yesterday we all did the same on the floor of the House, and it's important that actually when you were here, where the late Senator Ben Okello was an icon, and I read a lot of his obituary and message of condolence. How people have held him, but what is of curiosity is really the humility with which he carried himself all along. In spite of all the success that he had, and now that the good Lord has taken him, and we can't question Wahiga. Yesterday I said something, and I'll say it in a few minutes, that you can imagine when one has gone to run for a political campaign, the intents with which you apply yourself to it, the expense, the toll it takes on you. And then just to win the campaign, you are crowned the winner out of such a contest, and you don't even get to enjoy the fruits of that victory even for a week or 2 or a month, because Senator Ben Okello hardly after that election had any time even to sit and contribute in the House. Actually, I would tell you most of the members would even struggle to remember some of his contributions. What I'm saying is this, that you know, we all must thank God that we are here today, that we do the things that we do, and then we still find ourselves being granted that time. And I want to send my message of condolences to his family, to the people of Migori, to the people of the Republic, and to senators also and members of Parliament.
Fair enough.
Yes, I want to send my sincere condolences on behalf of my family, my wife, and the people of Makueni, to the people of Migori, the family of the late Ben Okello, and of course the family here at Royal Media Services. This senator has left such a young family and so many dependents that it's actually extremely tragic. The Senator Kajwang and I share a history that somebody had to die in the Senate for the 2 of us to be elected. So it's really, really very sad. And to echo the sentiments of Senator Kajwang here, because Senator Ben Okello spent a lot of time getting treatment in India. The last division of revenue had proposal for 2 regional cancer centers. which was shot down at it's a committee called IBEC, chaired by the Deputy President. They're the ones who didn't agree, where the Council of Governors sit, Treasury, etc., etc. They had other priorities. That is a senator who has a medical cover, who can afford to go to India several times, come back to Mpisha and still go to hospital. What happens to ordinary Kenyans who suffer from the same diseases or cancer? So it's a high time we acknowledge this fact, to say that it's unfortunate that we continue making this discussion and lofty statements and nothing happens. But to this good gentleman, and as whip of the minority, some element of something that I said, we nominated him as leadership to sit in the Committee of Health. That's where the contradiction is. He was supposed to sit in the Committee of Health to champion something, to find solutions to our health. And I must say this, that one time you must dedicate a discussion on matters health. Okay. Forget about these sugar fellows. Let's discuss the health status of the Kenyan nation. Okay. Generally.
I hope you'll join us for that interview when we...
Let's talk about medical equipment, what we're importing. What can we say about the status of health? We are doing universal health care, we're doing all these things, but is Kenya truly a healthy nation? I'll tell you no. For all you Kenyans who are able, please, this gentleman was sick, and up to his last day, he was coming to the Senate to participate in the debates. So all of you who are able, who can walk, who are feeling healthy, walk, go to work.
Do your best.
Go do your best.
Fair enough.
Yes.
May he rest in peace, and thank you, Senator Kajwang, for just helping us to really eulogize and your fellow senators as well to send their tributes to the late Ben Oloch Okello. I can give you a chance now just to talk a little bit about
yes, there is a linkage. If you see sugar being trucked or being offloaded from ships in a manner that makes you think of the sand for construction. If you see sugar being shoveled into the back of trucks, if you see the manner in which some of the sugar that was imported into this country was handled, and if that sugar is going to be consumed by millions of Kenyans, we are going to have a cancer outbreak in this country in the near future. Now we are being told that the maize in NCPB has got aflatoxin. I don't know what aflatoxin can do to people's lives, but I'm sure it can kill you faster than cancer could. You have too many cases and too many stories of consumable products, of foodstuff that is contaminated. And that is why the Kenya Bureau of Standards was set up. In fact, an interesting history about Kenya Bureau of Standards is that it was set up by Raila Odinga, who was then the Deputy Managing Director. It was set up around this time. Has the Kenya Bureau of Standards lived up to the expectation? Because there were certain objectives for which it was set up. But how I miss Chief Justice Mutunga, and how I miss is a candid and succinct assessment of Kenya. Kenya is indeed a bandit economy. It is controlled by mafia-like cartels. And the mafia cartels control not just business, it controls the politics of this country.
Yes. Does it control parliament?
It controls parliament, yes. I can tell you. It controls parliament. And that is why you'll find an issue such as sugar, an issue such as poisonous sugar, which should be an open and shut case. You'll find people having different views, and others saying that it is business rivalry,
yes,
when poison is being served upon Kenyans.
Yes.
And that is why you'd find Parliament inquiring into issues of corruption, and some characters will come in saying that our son is being prosecuted.
Yes.
And that is why you'll find when the president calls for a lifestyle audit, some members of Parliament will start saying that our man for 2022 is being targeted. Those cartels control Parliament, and those are the signs, and I've just given you a few signs, leave alone whatever happens. Mutunga said that 80% of those who hold public office are not fit to hold those offices. And what Mutunga said is just coming to light today. Someone allowed the importation of that sugar. There are people who do enforcement. Kenya Bureau of Standards, etc., Kenya Revenue Authority, all these people. While we are cracking down on retailers, people who are holding on to sugar with a Cabras brand on it, thinking that because there's a KEBS stamp on it and there are other stamps on it, that it is genuine. what has happened to the people who signed the documents at the port?
Yes.
What has happened to the person who did that Gazette notice? Those 2 Gazette notices that were done at around a time when it was not too far from elections. Those people are still in office. The smoke and mirrors that Matiang'i is subjecting this country to, because Matiang'i has been all over the place talking about mercury and copper, etc. What has happened to the people who allowed this poisonous sugar into the country? But Waiga, sugar and elections in this country go hand in hand. And it has not just started now. During the Moi regime, sugar was the biggest financier of political campaigns. And look at sugar scandals in this country, there is a relationship with elections. And even this one, you can clearly see a pattern where people are saying, we are going into an expensive election, where do we get the money from? Sugar, of course.
We're going to an expensive election in 4.5 years. And they already...
No. The last election.
Oh, for the local.
These are things that happened in the last election.
So these revelations are only coming to light now.
There are 2 things. We are going into an expensive election. Where do we get the money from? And then we have come from an expensive election. How do we recover our money? And sugar has been the low-lying fruit. At the expense of millions of farmers in my county of Homa Bay, the farmers in Diwa and Rangwe, they grow sugarcane thinking that they're going to make money out of it, and it all ends up in misery and brokenness.
Have the leaders of these sugar growing areas done everything they can to champion for the rights of their farmers?
Wahiga, we do that every day, every time we go to our constituencies, our counties. We are talking about the plight of farmers. When we come back, I sit in the Agriculture Committee of Senate. We have called the CS, in fact, it's just last week that we're with the CS Kiunjuri, putting him to task on issues of protection of farmers. But what do you do when some people sitting somewhere decide that Mr. Rai or the sugar daddies that Mutula is talking about can import the volumes of sugar that Kenya can consume in a year? How then do you protect your farmers? It does not matter whether you give your farmers fertilizer, it does not matter whether you give your farmers extension services, or it does not matter whether you modernize those plants. If one person is going to track in sugar, half the consumption. In fact, someone was saying yesterday, Senator Wetangula, that the importers brought in volumes of sugar that is almost equivalent to Kenya's annual consumption. Where does that leave farmers? And that is why my view is that the president has got administrative powers right now to take action against those who allowed these poisonous sugar into the market, and then Matiang'i can treat us to his theatrics once that has been done.
Fair enough. Hang on. I want to read an SMS, do a quick story, and then get another round of comments from each of you. Thank you. Mahmoud from Kisii says, Citizen TV, Kenyans are being treated to a circus-like opera of major scandals. The other day it was maize, then NYS. Now it is sugar and sugar daddies. Where are we heading? The other day there was news about SGR. He even writes, Wololo Yawa. Wololo Yawa. Are people really going to be put in jail for these scandals? Let's refresh your memory, just in case you weren't able to catch the news last night. Last night, Trade Cabinet Secretary Aden Mohamed said he wants his Interior CS counterpart, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, to confirm the source of information that sugar contaminated with dangerous metals has found its way into the country. And his statement, I'm talking about CS Mohammed, has infuriated the Director of Criminal Investigations, George Kinoti. Let's look at that report once again.
When you see the reports that have come from chemical analysis that have been done, some of what we are selling around and mixing as sugar has got high contents of mercury, has got high contents of copper. No wonder you have the cases you have around the country, whether they are related to cancer or what have you. We have just been selling poison.
It is this statement that has caused a scare across the country, a population afraid to have been exposed to life-threatening substances. But the Cabinet Secretary responsible for trade thinks the statements are misleading and false, and he wants an explanation from none other than the Interior Cabinet Secretary.
I have asked my counterpart, the Minister for Interior, who has been quoted by the media, that the sugar that has been caught and captured has traces of mercury, to see where those reports come from and what tests have been done to demonstrate that.
Hundreds of tons of sugar have so far been impounded in different parts of Kenya. The recurrent narrative is that the commodity was irregularly imported, meaning without following custom duty requirements, while some have been alleged to be contaminated.
To the best of our knowledge, there is no indication of anything like mercury that has been found in any of those sugars.
But the Director of Criminal Investigation, George Kinoti, who has been centering the ongoing crackdown, knows more than CS Mohammed, he says. Speaking to Citizen TV, Kinoti said that he is ready to be prosecuted should the information that there are traces of mercury in sugar be false. Kinoti saying that the sugar so far nabbed is unfit for human consumption and contains substances more harmful than mercury. Kinoti adding, quote, "I call upon Kenyans, for heaven's sake, for all the sugar we have sampled and confiscated, they should not listen to CS Mohammed. I am going to meet him in court." End of quote. CS Mohammed convinced that any sugar that may have been found unfit for human consumption could have suffered poor storage environment. He spoke after a parliamentary session with members of the Committee on Trade.
And if sugars get stored in some warehouses and they have been affected by floods, in some cases what we have seen, naturally some of these sugars will get spoiled. Molds will grow. Some things that should not be, in that would crop up.
A war so divisive that it's splitting not just the politicians, but now right into the cabinet. As for the truth, the wait continues. Sam Kituko, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
As for the truth, the wait continues. Senator Wamatangi, you can now make your statement.
Yeah, sure. Let me first thank my colleague Senator Kajwang, for that new term of bandit economy.
Because not sugar daddy.
I mean, of course, sugar daddy started, but of course, they will need to explain. Sugar daddy doesn't need to explain because
bandit economy.
He could have been there before, but he's a bandit. Well, and I was getting confused when we were coming in. Senator Kajwang was saying to somebody serving us tea, don't make mine very sweet. Then only to come with that huge talk. But Wahiga, you remember this sometimes when we were fighting corruption. I remember just before the elections, and the Anti-Corruption Commission was very active summoning people, and then politicians then had the habit of amassing small crowds around the headquarters of CASA, and they would be shouting in praise and singing in praise of the person coming to be grilled then. And you remember one humorous day when a crowd from Nairobi was saying that, our thief is innocent. this is our thief. and that tells you the attitude that our people have, and especially that we have adapted to wrongdoers in society. And that is the sad thing, that we have virtually become deal makers at high level, such that you find that is the talk all the time. That's what sells. What kind of deal can me and you here be able to make out of this or out of that? And so safety, the well-being of people, that's nowhere. But I must say a few things. One, exactly like what my friend said. You see, the history of the importation of sugar, Wahiga, in this country goes all the way long ago, actually from the Moi era, all the way even during the Kibaki era and now into this one. Because if there are any, you would call in quote, overnight billionaires that have been made out of these industries, or out of these trades, not only in sugar, but in agricultural produce. And the questions I believe that we should be asking ourselves, and I ask myself continuously, is why especially in the subsectors that concern agriculture? And I'll tell you why. It's because the players in those subsectors are the weakest in our society. If you look at, for example, look at the maize scandals that have been there, and not even only the recent one about the importation of maize, which is now in the newspapers as being infested and infected with aflatoxins and mold and insects already in silos in NCPB storage, awaiting to be disbursed to millers to mill for consumption. Not only that, but remember when there were stories about ships hanging and hovering around with maize in Mombasa from Malawi and this is how people have found themselves being overnight billionaires, like I've said. And so the capital question is this: as government in a long-term sense or at policy level, what have we focused on? Are we focusing on empowering, opening the doors for these importers, or on strengthening our farmers? And I'll tell you that we have had this wrong all the time, not in this government, but all the way through from the policy we've pursued. And I'll tell you why. Let me finish.
I was going to ask you why.
Yes, let me tell you why. You know, if you look at the life of a farmer who farms maize, it is miserable. Miserable. Whether you are farming 1,000 acres or whatever, none of those farmers make money. Look at sugarcane farmers, they are miserable. Look at coffee farmers, they are miserable. Tea farmers, same thing. But does that mean that farming is condemned to that kind of fate? The answer is no. Because then take the flip side of it and look at well-managed farming in this country where there is interest. For example, look at tobacco farming, which was taken over by BAT when BAT had a direct interest, and they were contracting their farmers, paying them well and sustaining them. Now look at the recent case of barley farmers. And you've seen like what is happening within Narok and other areas. People have been uprooting and refusing to grow wheat now to grow barley because they have got a good manager who is ready to support them and has an interest in the kind of farming. And so those farmers are smiling to the bank. They need their homes because there is somebody with a specific interest on how to manage them. So if you ask yourself then, on the contrary, and what concerns me is because we go around the whole globe telling everyone that we are an agricultural-based economy, that all our arable land is under cultivation right now, and it's a shame. This is something that we must deal with.
Because in 1 minute, you say that the import of sugar has been going on since time, since we can remember.
Sure.
My question is, importers don't work in isolation. If the rules are broken in their favor,
yes,
who is benefiting? One, and secondly,
yes,
now that the whistle has been blown, for what purpose? Especially if we were to buy what Senator Kajwang said, that this could even have been for fundraising for last year. So why are these revelations now coming to light in June 2018?
I'll tell you in a minute, like you said. One, I believe there is, as I said when we started, there's a lot to this than meets the eye. This could even be cartel wars. It may not be about the welfare of people or consumers. It may not be about either the safety of the consumption of the sugar. It may be cartel wars. People who are fighting so that they can be the ones to dominate the business. It could be anything. I mean, how would you term it? But I want to say this. First on those clips that you heard last.
Still in 1 minute.
Yes, that I believe at cabinet level, it is very, very important, and at government level between all the players, that they should sit and compare notes, so that once the CS for industrialization, the CS for interior, the DCA and others, because they're all in government, they should be able first and know that we are all serving Kenyans for their interest, compare notes, then come up with one statement that is intended to help the people. No, that contradiction. Now, you ask now that there are these revelations, why? I'll tell you. I'll tell you one thing. Whether it is for elections, whether it's for profiteering, the evidence is there for everybody to read. That what we are doing to Kenyan farmers is wrong. A farmer in Ethiopia now who farms cane smiles all the way to the bank. Can you imagine Sudan priding itself in running profitable sugar industries? And we cannot in Kenya. And that's why I'm saying this, that it is simply a well choreographed and intended script such that the farming subsector itself can be oppressed, because who are the farmers in this country?
Okay.
What voice do they have?
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Senator.
Let me tell you the tragedy about all this. One of the things that President Uhuru Kenyatta is taking pride in is what is called the Big Four agenda. What is one of the big agendas in the Big Four? It's called food security. Now, what do you make out of the agenda of food security when we are discussing a matter like this one? Because this is food security. But you can see that as the president is going around the country talking about food security, we have so much insecurity. Now, when you hear a very senior member, the senator of the president, one Kimani Wamatangi, talking about cartel wars. He says this could be...
the senator of the president?
Yes.
Other senators are not...
No, the president comes from Kiambu.
Okay. Just in case anyone was...
The president votes for him.
Yes, so that he won. Therefore, it means the president voted for Kimani Wamatangi.
I'll give you a chance.
Okay, 5, please.
When you hear Senator Wamatangi, and this gentleman doesn't speak out of idleness. He's a businessman talking about cartels. He knows what he is talking about.
What do you mean by he's a businessman?
This gentleman is a serious businessman. This one.
Is he a sugar daddy?
No, I don't know.
I'm a businessman, you know.
How you given him a tell?
He's right to reply.
I just wanted to justify because, you know, he could insinuate that I'm a businessman and people think that I trade in sugar.
In 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, what did he mean by you're a businessman?
No, I've been running business before I got elected into the Senate, and I still do for a long time. So that's the identity he's speaking about.
Okay, that's
what
is that what you're talking
from
about?
That perspective.
Yes. Okay.
When he talks about cartels, he knows what he's talking about. But the tragedy of the statement he makes is that this could be, he's just being careful, this could be cartel war. But where does CS Matiang'i and CS Mohammed, the majority leader of the National Assembly, get into the fray in the cartel business? I've had statements, and you know, let's speak very honestly if we want to help Kenyans. There are people who are saying Somalis are being targeted. That is why you can see people are saying these people are doing honest business, don't target Somalis. And that is why I think, in my own view, and I stand corrected, CS Adan is coming from, because you can see a certain pattern of people who are doing that. There are people who are making statements about this gentleman called Rai. Yesterday, one of the senators, Senator Kabaka, made a very interesting statement about the involvement of very senior people with this gentleman called Rai.
Very senior people where? In Jubilee?
NASA? In Jubilee, yeah. Let me tell you, the word choices have consequences. This is the time choices will have serious consequences, serious casualties, and it will be very messy, particularly in Jubilee. Let me tell you.
Very messy.
Very messy. And lastly, to say this.
Go ahead.
I want to disagree with Senator Kajwang, because he's my friend and we speak very honestly. When there was a problem about Mira, the Meru leaders spoke with one voice about the protection of the Mira business. I think that the leaders in the sugar belt have been speaking with their tongue in cheek about this. They are complicit in this. They are not speaking together. And during the disagreement, some of them could have been beneficiaries of the money that these sugar daddies are giving for politics. Politics has become so expensive that we turn a blind eye to ills like these ones. And it is possible that these people are funding elections even in the Western Kenya and Nyanza belt. So they have not spoken...
On the backs of the poor farmers.
On the backs of the poor farmers. So when we go on the political platforms, we are paying lip service to the sugar farmers while we are pocketing the money from these illegal deals. Because some of this sugar that was found in factories, it didn't just walk there. So they need to be serious about the question of sugar. Do we just disband this thing and make it private? Let's make it a private enterprise. Government can get out of it. But yesterday we had statements about the waivers. There's a waiver that was given. Government agrees to lose money so that this sugar can get into the country.
Because of some sort of shortage.
So you create an official shortage. A gazette notice is issued. It is published. Everybody keeps quiet, because that is where, of course, the deals are passing through one person to the other. Everybody keeps quiet. Sugar arrives into the country. So they are as guilty as charged.
Fair enough. Because I want our viewers to keep tuned, I'll give you a right of reply or a response to what he said after the short break. You're watching the Power Breakfast News. We'll be right back.